The auction yard was noisy, filled with rusted machines, broken droids, and greedy men yelling over old space junk. It smelled of oil, metal, and sweat. Some ships were half torn apart, others barely held together by tape and memory. No one expected anything valuable here. Just scrap, just trash, just noise. But in the far corner of the lot, covered in dust and shadows, stood a silent ship. It was old, sleek, and different. Its black metal hull shimmered under the moonlight like liquid glass. No one went near it. Rumors whispered that it was cursed, haunted. One man said it killed 3 buyers. Another said it belonged to an assassin who vanished inside. Nobody knew the truth. So they stayed away. Except Jackson. Jackson had no family, no crew, and no luck. He was a broke mechanic from the outer rings who just wanted a ship with parts he could fix or sell. He didn't care about rumors. He saw the ship, felt something strange stir in his chest, and raised his hand when the auctioneer laughed and said, "Starting at 100 credits. Anyone stupid enough?" "Yeah," Jackson said. "I'll take it." People stared. Some laughed. Others shook their heads. "You just bought a coffin, boy." A trader smirked. Jackson shrugged and signed the papers. He climbed into the ship alone, pushing open the heavy hatch with a rusty screech. The inside was dark, quiet, and cold. Dust floated through the air like falling stars. The control panel blinked once green light, then went dead again. The ship didn't speak, didn't whir, didn't hum. It was still. Then he heard it breathing. He froze. It wasn't his. Soft, slow, steady breathing. Not mechanical. Not robotic. Living. He turned slowly, flashlight in hand, scanning the hallway behind the cockpit. Shadows danced on the walls. Pipes ran like veins through the ceiling. He followed the sound, his boots crunching against shattered glass and pieces of old gear. The breathing grew louder. Then a voice, soft, scared. "Please, don't hurt me." Jackson froze. The voice was female. Shaky, close. "I won't," he said, raising both hands. "I don't even know who you are." A shape moved behind an open panel. A glowing hand, blue, slender, inhuman. A woman crawled out slowly. No weapon, no armor, just skin like moonlight and eyes like burning stars. Her hair was white, flowing, wild. She wore rags, thin, torn, barely covering her. Her body shook as she stood. Thin, fragile, beautiful, and terrified. "Did they sell me again?" she asked. "What?" Jackson blinked. "No, I just bought this ship. I didn't know anyone was inside." She stared at him for a long moment, as if testing his words. Then she whispered, "Are you human?" He nodded. She dropped to her knees. "Then kill me now. It would be kinder than the last one." Jackson didn't know what to say. He knelt beside her slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "I didn't even know you were here." She didn't answer, only kept staring at the floor. Her eyes were red, tired, hopeless. Her body was covered in thin scars, some old, some new. He saw the metal collar on her neck, faintly glowing red. A slave tag. "Who did this to you?" He asked gently. "The ones who owned this ship before," she whispered. "They lost it in a war. I was left behind. They never came back. I've been hiding here, alone." Jackson swallowed hard. He didn't believe in fate. But something about this moment, this girl, this ship, it all felt meant. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Ilani." "Okay. Ilani, I'm Jackson, and you're safe now, I promise." She looked at him, confused. "Why? Why would you care?" "Because you're not a thing. You're not property. And I'm not like them." She didn't believe him, not yet. That night, Jackson stayed in the pilot seat, keeping the lights on. Ilani hid in the back, watching him from behind a wall. She didn't sleep. She barely blinked. But she didn't run. And when the ship trembled, In the middle of the night, an old proximity sensor still active. Jackson checked the scanner. One red dot, a small tracking ship, and it was coming fast. The moment the red dot appeared on the ship's old scanner, Jackson knew something was wrong. It wasn't a delivery drone. It wasn't an old satellite. It was fast, sharp, and aiming straight for them. Someone was tracking the ship and they were close. Elani, still hiding behind the wall, sensed it too. Her body went rigid, eyes wide with fear. "They found me," she whispered. "They always find me." Jackson didn't wait. He jumped into the pilot's seat and slammed the controls. The ship barely responded, still half dead from years of sitting. The engines coughed. The lights flickered. He slammed the console again. "Come on, girl." "Not now." Elani slowly stepped forward, unsure. "You don't understand. They don't come to talk. They come to take me back. Or burn everything to keep me quiet. Then we won't let them." She looked at him confused. "We?" Jackson glanced back. "Yeah, I'm not leaving you." The ship's scanners showed the enemy vessel breaking into the atmosphere. It was small, built for speed and old hunter class. Its ID was encrypted, but Elani already knew who it was. "They called themselves traders," she said, her voice flat. "But they were slavers, smugglers. They kept me locked in the engine room for 2 years. I cleaned their boots with my hands tied." Her eyes burned. "I'm not going back." She walked to a hidden panel in the back of the ship and pressed her hand to it. It opened with a soft hiss, revealing a set of weapons, strange, curved, glowing with alien light. Jackson blinked. "That was there the whole time? This ship was my mother's once. A noble ship. Before it became a cage." She pulled out a short staff that lit up with blue fire. "It still remembers me." Jackson could barely keep the ship steady as the enemy vessel closed in. A sharp alarm rang out. They were locking on. "Get ready," he shouted. "If they dock, they won't get the chance," Elani said, moving like a shadow toward the airlock. Seconds later, the hunter ship clamped onto their hull with a hard clang. Jackson jumped out of the seat and followed her down the corridor. She was already at the door, holding her weapon tight. "You're really going to fight them?" She turned her head slightly. "I'm done running." The airlock opened. 3 armored figures stepped in, tall, masked, armed. Their weapons pointed forward. "Hand over the girl," one said. "Or die with her." Jackson raised his hands, but before they could shoot, Elani moved, fast, silent, deadly. She struck the first man's helmet with her glowing staff crack. Sparks flew. He dropped, screaming. The second turned, but Elani twisted under his weapon and slammed her palm into his chest. A pulse of blue energy exploded from her hand. He hit the wall and didn't move. The third tried to shoot. He never got the chance. Jackson threw a wrench at his hand. The shot missed. Elani followed up with a high kick, then drove her staff straight into the man's chest plate. He collapsed with a grunt. Silence. Jackson stared at the 3 bodies on the floor. "Alive but out cold. Remind me not to mess with you," he said, half smiling. But Elani wasn't smiling. She was trembling. "That wasn't me," she whispered. "That was what they made me." They dragged the unconscious invaders into the cargo bay and locked them inside. Elani sat quietly near the window, staring into the stars. Jackson brought her a thermal blanket and sat beside her. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said gently. "I was supposed to be a healer," she whispered. "That was my path. But they trained me like a weapon. I was just a child when they took me. I learned to survive by hurting others." She closed her eyes. "But when you found me, you didn't treat me like a weapon or a slave. You spoke to me like I mattered." "You do matter," Jackson said. A long silence passed between them. "I thought humans were monsters," she said quietly, "but maybe I was wrong." Jackson checked the scanners again. The hunter ship was still docked, but disabled. No new signals yet. But they both knew more might come. Alani stood and looked at the stars. They'll send more. They always do, as long as they think I'm property. Then let's make them think again, Jackson said. She turned to him, her face tired but calm. Are you sure you want me here? I come with danger, Jackson. I come with a past. He looked at her for a long time. I didn't just buy a ship. He said, looks like I bought trouble too, but maybe. I don't mind. Alani didn't speak, but her eyes softened, and for the first time in years she smiled. Alani stood over the unconscious slavers, her staff glowing faintly in her hand. Her breath was calm now, but her eyes were heavy with memories she didn't speak aloud. Jackson watched from across the control room, wondering how someone who looked like starlight could carry such deep scars inside. Then it happened. A soft pulse of light, gentle blue, spread from her skin to his. Jackson blinked. His chest tightened. A warmth, no, a connection, sparked inside him. Alani turned sharply, eyes wide. No, she gasped. That wasn't supposed to happen. What was that? Jackson asked. You touched my blood, she whispered, stepping back. And now we're bonded. Jackson didn't move. He just stared. Bonded? Alani looked down at her hands. It was only supposed to work if two beings shared a moment of trust during life or death. Soul bonding. It's rare, ancient, meant for warriors and mates. Jackson tried to laugh, but it came out nervous and flat. So, I accidentally married an alien? It's deeper than that, she said. Our thoughts, our feelings, part of me is in you now, and part of you is in me. Jackson sat down hard. Well, that explains why I suddenly feel like crying. Alani smiled weakly. That's me. As the hours passed, the bond grew stronger. They began to sense each other. When Jackson was worried, she felt his fear as if it were her own. When Alani sat quietly, staring at the stars, Jackson would suddenly feel lonely for no reason. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was real, gentle, honest, and terrifying. Alani explained more as they traveled toward an asteroid field to hide the ship. The soul bond was used by my ancestors during war. If two fighters bonded, they would move as one, feel as one. But if lovers bonded, they could never lie to each other again. The bond doesn't allow it. Jackson leaned back, processing. So now, I can't hide anything from you. Nope, she said softly. He groaned. Great. You'll know every time I think you're beautiful. She blushed. I already know. Later, while repairing the ship's damaged core, Jackson cut his palm. Alani gasped from the hallway, holding her hand as if she had been cut. That's going to take some getting used to, she muttered. They really laughed for the first time since they met, but their laughter didn't last long because, not far from their ship, deep in the dark of space, something else stirred. A cloaked vessel hovered in silence. Its hull was blacker than the void, absorbing all light. Inside, a tall figure studied the tracker readings. A pulse had been felt, a soul bond signature flaring bright, then vanishing. He turned to his men. She's alive. And worse, she bonded with a human. His second-in-command grunted. Disgusting. Dangerous, the leader corrected. We can't allow her to awaken the old line. If the bloodline returns, we're finished. He activated the communicator. Send the collector ships. I want her returned or erased, and bring the human. I want to see who dares bind himself to her. Meanwhile, back on Jackson's ship, things were changing. The ship's ancient systems had started lighting up again. Doorways that were locked for years opened at Alani's touch. Lights flickered back to life. The ship remembered her. This vessel is linked to my family, she said, placing her hand on the main panel. It responds to my bloodline. And now that we're bonded, Jackson said slowly, it responds to you too, she finished. They stood together in the control room. The stars stretched ahead. Behind them, their enemies grew closer. Elani looked at Jackson. You can still leave, you know. You didn't ask for this. Jackson shook his head. Neither did you. But you're not alone anymore. She looked down. They will hunt us. He stepped closer. Then we run, or we fight together. That night, Jackson couldn't sleep. He stared out the small porthole, watching comets drift by. He could feel Elani's thoughts, quiet and soft, like a whisper behind his own. Why? Did you bid on this ship? She asked from the hallway. He turned to her. I don't know, it just felt like something was calling me. She smiled gently. Maybe it was me. They didn't touch. They didn't kiss, but in that silence, something deeper passed between them, something real. The alarm blared like a scream through metal. Red lights flashed. Jackson jumped from the floor. Elani was already at the command console, her fingers flying across alien keys, her eyes full of dread. 3 ships. Black hulls, no IDs. No COMS. Just death flying closer. They found us, she whispered. These ships don't speak first. They kill first, fast and clean. Jackson stared at the screen. One target. Them. They had 10 minutes. Maybe less. Jackson ran to the engine core, slamming. Open panels, rewiring circuits, anything to get more power. The ship wasn't ready for a fight, not yet. Its weapons were ancient, half-dead, missing fuses, but Elani was ready. She stepped into her armor for the first time since she was taken years ago. It was old, royal blue with silver trim. It hummed when it touched her skin, recognizing its warrior again. Her staff retracted into a hilt on her hip. Jackson turned the corner and stopped. She looked like a queen forged from stars. Whoa, he said. You always walk around like that? Only when I expect to die, she said flatly. Don't say that. I'm not scared of dying, Jackson. I'm scared of what they'll do to you. You're bonded to me. They'll rip you apart just to erase me. Jackson tightened the bolt and looked at her. Then they'll have to kill me first. The ship vibrated. The enemy trio had surrounded them, forcing them down toward a lifeless moon covered in ash. No way to run now. Elani grabbed Jackson's arm. If we're captured, she said, voice sharp, don't try to save me. Break the bond. Kill me if you have to. If I fall into their hands again. Jackson pulled his arm away. I'm not killing anyone, he snapped. Not you, not me. We're getting out of this, together. Elani looked into his eyes and saw something deeper than bravery. Conviction. She didn't answer. Just nodded once. The ship hit the moon's surface hard. Dust exploded in every direction. Jackson cut the power to hide their energy signal. But it was useless. The enemies had already landed nearby. We need to hide, Jackson whispered. No, Elani said. We need to show them we're not prey. She walked out of the hatch into the ash-covered air. Jackson followed, his heart pounding in his chest. His steps left prints in the soft gray dirt. Above, the stars looked cold, watching, 3 dark. Ships sat like beasts, wings open. From them came tall masked warriors and black armor collectors, cold, silent, ruthless. Their leader stood in front. His armor was bone white. His voice sharp. You will surrender the bonded one. Elani stepped forward. I am not yours to claim. You were marked as royal property. You disobeyed. You bonded with a lesser race. You dishonor your blood. Jackson shouted. She's not your anything. The collector turned to him. The human, he sneered. Pathetic. You've made her weak. No, Elani growled. He's made me stronger. The collectors raised their weapons, but Elani moved faster. She launched forward, her staff bursting into flame. In seconds, she clashed with the first warrior. Sparks exploded as weapons collided. Jackson dove behind the rocks, grabbing the plasma pistol he had rigged earlier. He fired missed but distracted one enemy long enough for Elani to strike. Jackson wasn't a fighter, but he was a fixer. He triggered a hidden EMP spike he planted near the landing site. It pulsed through the moon's surface, shutting down the collector's long-range weapons. 2 down, but the white-armored leader didn't move. He drew a blade ancient, red, humming with sick energy. He called out to Ilani. Your bond ends. Now with his death. He charged at Jackson. Time slowed. Jaxon couldn't dodge, but Ilani, she leapt. She placed herself between them. The blade cut across her side. Not fatal, but enough to drop her. Jackson screamed, catching her before she fell. The white-armored leader raised his sword again, prepared to end them both. But something happened. The bond flared. A light burst from Jackson's chest, pure energy, Alani's. Life force flowing through him. Their souls lit up like a star being born. The collector screamed and flew backward, as if struck by a force no one could see. He hit the ground hard. His armor cracked. He looked up and saw Jackson standing, glowing with ancient royal light. You're not just bonded, the collector whispered. You've become one. Then he vanished, retreating like a ghost into the night. Ilani coughed, blood on her lips. You didn't run, she whispered. Never, Jackson said, holding her tightly. I told you, we fight together. She touched his cheek, weak but smiling. Our bond. It's not supposed to be this strong, but maybe. That's what makes it real. The moment Ilani saw the message, her hand stopped moving. The screen flickered with blue royal script words no one had spoken in years. To the living flame of House Vashar. We know you breathe. Jackson leaned in beside her. Who sent that? She didn't blink. Her voice dropped to a whisper. My brother is dead, she said. So how? Is this written in his voice? The message continued. It was short, old dialect. Meant for noble blood only. Alani's fingers trembled as she translated it. Return to the waking spire. Your house has not fallen. It sleeps. Come home, before your bond burns it all. She sat back, breath shaking. I thought I was the last. The only one left, she whispered. But if this is real, someone from my family still lives. Jackson studied her. And they know about our bond. She looked up. They're calling me back. Not to welcome me, but to judge me. The waking spire was once the home of her bloodline, an ancient fortress hanging in orbit above a dead star. It had fallen during the last war, and no signals ever came from it again. Until now. Jackson guided the ship toward the coordinates. Star system was cold, wrapped in cosmic debris. Nothing moved. No ships, no stations. Just the silence of memory. But as they approached the spire, it came to life. Lights flickered. Doors opened. Something had awakened. Inside. The air was cold and heavy with the weight of history. Tall corridors stretched upward like temples. Symbols of her family, etched in gold and silver, lined the walls, untouched by time. The spire's eye recognized Ilani immediately and granted access. But when it scanned Jackson, it hesitated. Human, non-noble, bonded. Pause. Record unrecognized. Royal breach. Trial required. Ilani stepped forward, voice sharp. I am the heir. He stands with me. The eye hesitated again. That allowed them deeper inside. But its warning echoed behind them. He shall be judged by the flame. They reached the throne hall. It was dim, silent. Until the light above the dais shifted and a figure stepped from the shadows. Tall, slim, armor cracked, but regal. His face, familiar. Alani's voice cracked. Vaer, the figure nodded. Slowly, little flame, he said, you survived. Her knees buckled. You were dead. I saw your name on the ash walls. He stepped closer. They wrote my death too early. I was taken, kept alive by rebels, until I escaped. Then his gaze turned cold, and now I see, you brought him. Jackson stayed calm, but alert. I'm not here to take anything. Just to keep her safe. Vaer laughed bitterly. Safe? You bound yourself to her. You burned royal magic. Do you even know what that means? Jackson answered, I didn't choose the bond, but I won't break it. Vayer stepped down from the throne, armor humming with energy. His voice boomed now. That bond ties her power to yours. It is sacred and dangerous. If her bloodline is to rise again, it cannot be tied to weakness. Ilani stepped between them. He is not weak. He's the only reason I'm alive, but Vayer was not done. He waved his hand and suddenly, the spire trembled, walls shifted. A ring of light formed around Jackson. Then prove it, Vayer said. Enter the trial of flame. Let the spire itself judge him. If the bond is true, he will live. If not, the fire will take him. Jackson looked at Ilani. She tried to stop it. No, we don't need this. But Jackson gave her a small smile. If it shows them what you already see in me, I'll do it. He stepped into the ring. The trial began. The walls faded, replaced by illusion. Jackson stood alone in a burning forest, flames licking at his boots, ash filling the sky. Shadows of warriors, Ilani's ancestors, appeared around him. They whispered, judged, tested. He fought illusions of fear, doubt, his own voice mocking him. You are not royal. You are just a man. She will outlive you. She will regret you. You are not enough, he screamed back. I am enough. And then silence. The fire turned white. It rushed toward him and vanished. Outside the ring, Ilani held her breath, then the light faded. Jackson was still standing unburned. Calm, strong. The I voice returned. Trial passed. Flame accepted. Bond recognized. Vayer stepped forward, stunned. You survived. Jackson wiped sweat from his forehead. Yeah, hope that earns me a seat at the royal table. Vayer gave the smallest smile. You have my respect. But now you'll need something greater. The old spire trembled as warning lights bathed its royal halls in red. From the command pillar, ancient screens flickered to life, showing a grim sight: 12 collector warships breaking out of warp, closing fast. Ilani stood frozen, her hand gripping Jackson's. They're not here to capture us anymore, she said, voice hollow. They're here to finish what they started, to erase the last blood of House Vaisharmi. Jackson glanced at her brother. And what are they bringing all those ships for? Vayer looked up, his eyes burning. For war. The spire had been quiet for decades. Now it buzzed like a hornet's nest preparing to sting. Vayer moved quickly, barking commands to the AI systems, waking sleeping weapons buried in the station's bones. Automated defense turrets unfolded from the towers. Drone fighters launched from hangars older than Jackson's entire planet. We can hold for a few hours at best, Vayer said. But if they breach the spire's heart, everything ends. Jackson stared at the tactical map. Then we can't let them in. Ilani moved beside him. The spire is powered by our family's bloodline. There's a last measure. A core flare, we can use it to blind their fleet. Vayer shook his head. That will destroy the spire, and us. Jackson didn't hesitate. Then we do it. The plan was insane. But it was the only shot they had. While Vayer coordinated defenses, Ilani led Jackson to the inner sanctum, the place where the core slept. A crystal sphere floated in the center of a chamber wrapped in vines of glowing metal. It pulsed like a heartbeat, soft, warm. Alive. This is the soul core, she said. It responds to us royals. But with our bond, it responds to you too. That's why you survived the trial. Jackson stepped closer. And if we activate it fully, it becomes a flare strong enough to blind their scanners, disrupt weapons, and stall their invasion. But only for minutes, he nodded. Then we hit them hard while they're blind. The war began. 12 collector ships broke through orbit, launching wave after wave of fighters. The sky above the spire became fire. Vayer led the defense teams, piloting from the top deck like a commander reborn. Inside, Jackson worked to stabilize. The flare system, its codes ancient, half-fused, refusing to obey. His hands bled from sparks. Ilani stayed at his side, feeding power from her own bond to keep it alive. "We don't have much time," she whispered. "If this doesn't work, it will work," Jackson snapped. "Because I'm not letting you go." Suddenly, the chamber shook violently. A boarding ship had slammed into the outer wall. Alani's eyes narrowed. "They're breaching." "Theirs." Voice crackled over Combs. "They've landed inside the West Wing. They're heading for the core." Jackson armed himself. Ilani drew her staff. The two of them stood in the doorway alone, waiting for the coming storm. The collectors came in fast, 6 in black armor, their leader in red, holding a twisted blade humming with void energy. His helmet slid open, revealing a pale, scarred face. "You are the fire they feared," he told Ilani. "But fire can be snuffed." Ilani stepped forward. "Try." The battle was brutal. Jackson fought with all he had, ducking, firing, blocking. But he wasn't a soldier. Ilani protected him like a storm. Her movements were a dance of fire and light. Staff clashed with blade. Sparks flew. Blood hit the ground. The collector leader fought her hard, slicing her armor, wounding her arm. But she didn't fall. Jackson caught her just once when she stumbled and held her steady. She whispered, "Now do it." He ran to the core, slammed his hand on the seal, and said the word the spire had been waiting for: "Awaken." The soul core ignited. A blinding white flare exploded through the spire, racing out into orbit. Outside, the collector ships blinked out, sensors fried. Comms jammed, weapons silenced. The battlefield froze. Inside, the flare pushed back the collectors like a holy wave. They screamed, falling back blinded, disoriented. But the red-armored leader lunged for one last strike. Too late. Ilani spun and drove her staff through his chest. He dropped. Lifeless, the spire shook again, this time from within. Jackson turned. To the core. It was cracking. The price of using it, destruction. Ilani turned to him. "This place will fall. We need to leave." Jackson nodded. "Where's Vare?" Her brother's voice rang in through Combs. "I'm staying behind to hold the breach. Go, now." "Vare, you carry the flame now, sister. Keep it burning." They ran. Through fire, through falling stone, through the end of an era. Jackson and Ilani barely made it to the hangar. Launching the ship just as the spire collapsed behind them, a star of memory turned to ash. The spire was gone. Behind them, a once royal home now drifted as dust across the stars. Jackson piloted the stolen collector vessel in silence. Beside him, Ilani stared into the black, her hand pressed gently to her wound, her face blank. Everything she knew had burned: her home, her brother, her past. Then, a new alert blinked on the console. A signal, encrypted, royal class, active. Jackson's eyes narrowed. Ilani sat up. "That code, it's not from the collectors." She leaned forward and whispered, "It's from my mother's throne." The ship on the edge of the system was massive, twice the size of the spire, a floating citadel of crystal and steel, shining under a red dwarf sun. It bore the royal crest of Veshar, but modernized, sleeker, alive. "How is that ship even functional?" Jackson asked. "Didn't they destroy all royal vessels?" Ilani shook her head. "They thought they did. But the Flame Guard, our secret line of protectors, they must have hidden it." The message repeated again. A voice this time. "To Ilani Veshar, last light of the flame, your throne awaits. Return and be judged, or let it die." Jackson turned to her. "You don't have to go." She looked at him. "Yes, I do. But they'll test you, again, question your bond, question me." She gave a small, tired smile. "Let them." They docked with the floating throne ship. It welcomed her instantly, gates unlocking, lights following her steps as she walked the old halls. Jackson followed, Heart-pounding dot in the center of the ship was a hall of glass and fire. A throne of living metal stood at the far end, wrapped in solar energy. Around it 12 flame guard elders in golden armor. Faces masked, weapons at their backs. She bowed. I am Elani, daughter of Ves and Mira, blood of the flame. I have returned. One elder stepped forward. His voice echoed with power. Your claim to the throne is not complete. You bonded outside the line. That breaks tradition. I bonded with a human, she said proudly, and I'd do it again. They raised their heads. Then he too must speak. Jackson stepped beside her. I didn't plan this, he said, honest. I didn't know what I was walking into. I just saw a ship, made a bid, and stepped into a war I didn't understand. But I understand now. He reached for Alani's hand. She's not a weapon. She's not a prisoner. She's not someone to be erased. She's a queen. And if you're asking if I'll stand beside her, I already am. The flame guard were silent. Then the core of the throne flared. A golden beam surged into the chamber. It scanned Elani, then Jackson. 2 pulses, 2 flames, 1 bond. The lid elder lowered his mask. An older woman, sharp-eyed, battle-worn, then let the fire decide. The room began to shift, walls folding inward, forming a dome of light, a final trial. Elani and Jackson stood side by side, surrounded by their ancestors' voices, echoing from the past. Do you carry the flame with honor? Will you let go of vengeance? Will you build, not burn? Elani squeezed his hand. We will, she said. The light exploded outward, and when it faded, the throne had changed. No longer a seat of one. Now 2 seats stood at the center. The flame guard knelt. Long live the flame bonded first rulers of the new line. In the days that followed, news spread fast. The collectors had failed. The last of House Vashar had not only survived, but returned, stronger, bonded, and united with the one species the galaxy underestimated, humanity. And Jackson, the broken mechanic from a junk auction, was now consort to a queen. But they didn't stay on the throne. Not for long. They turned the throne ship into a traveling fleet, rescuing others like Elani, hiding across stars, waiting for freedom. Together they built something new, a home for those who'd been forgotten, a fire for those who'd been cold. One night, on the observation deck, Elani leaned into Jackson's chest, watching the stars pass. You never asked for any of this, she whispered. Jackson smiled. I didn't need to. I won you in an auction. Remember? She laughed. You didn't win me. He nodded. No, you chose to stay. Her voice softened. And I always will.